This episode is brought to you by Vital Farms. Isn't it bullshit to have to question where your food comes from? At Vital Farms, you can trace your pasture-raised eggs all the way back to the source, the pasture. On the side of each pasture-raised carton of eggs, you'll find the name of the farm where your eggs were laid. And when you look the farm up on their website, you'll get a peek at all the sunshine, fresh air, and open space the hens enjoy. Learn more and find out where to buy them at vitalfarms.com. Vital Farms, keeping it bullshit-free.
This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with a 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available reclining lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Welcome to the podcast. In this episode, I talk with Zander Sprague about how to be epic at work, even when you're working remotely. Zander Sprague, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you, John. I'm so excited to be here.
It is a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from the Bay Area. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about how to be epic at work, even when you're working remotely. Now, epic, E-P-I-C, you're going to explain to us what that means, but this is in relation to the work that you do and your book. And I'm really excited to explore this with you. As we get started, I wanted to share Zander's bio with everybody. Zander Sprague is an internationally acclaimed public speaker, author, and licensed professional clinical counselor. His mission is to help millions of people make the epic choices that create an epic life. Drawing on his decades of work and experience with companies of all sizes, he guides teams to achieve epic results. I love that. Thank you so much for joining me. Anything you would like to highlight by way of your own personal background or context before we dive on it?
No. I mean, I think you covered some of, the big things, and, let's figure this all out. Let's help people be epic.
Yeah. Well, let's start there. What is epic? If you can pull that apart for us and explain what you mean by epic.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think there's so many things in our life that we want to do, epic things. And look, it could be professionally, could be personally, could be things like running a marathon or writing a best-selling book. Or perhaps it's some kind of unexpected epic that happens to you, and how am I going to get through this? For me, what epic really stands for, those 3 letters, is every pilgrimage includes commitment. And I think that's so important, especially in the workplace, because they're the things that we want to achieve. But sometimes we're not quite sure how we're going to do that.
For sure. Knowing how to get there is really challenging. I'll also say, I think a lot of people struggle to even really tap into those epic kind of goals for themselves. A lot of us kind of walk through life trying to do what society tells us, or what we think, society is telling us we should do, or friends or family or whatever. So we have all these outside pressures pushing on us to do what we think is important. And I think it takes, a bit of a unique individual to be willing to take the time to step back, do the critical self-reflection, and come to a place where they can see, what are those epic things for them? What are those priorities and those goals and the values, the mission, the vision that you have in your own personal life that may apply to work, but also to other areas. I think that can be challenging. But even once we get to the point where we can have that vision, right, and we do set these goals and we want to do these things, moving from vision to implementation can be very, very hard. And it's an even more breed of individual that can really, take life by the horns and do that. So I appreciate you framing it that way.
Right. Absolutely, John. But here's the thing. Coming from both personal and psychological standpoint, I think the way that we get to where that epic, the way we get there is we create structure, because structure is so important. And I say that a lot of the time when I'm working with clients or I'm speaking and I see people go, oh, no, I don't want any structure. But here's the thing. We all feel comfortable with structure. Structure literally is just a human reaction of, I know what to expect. So let me give an example. Let's say you need to drive to the grocery store. Are you particularly stressed as you're driving to the grocery store? No, you're not. Why? Because you know how to get there. You got to go down and take a left here and go straight and take a right and stuff. But I think, especially in our work life, you mentioned, oh, this is what society expects me to do. We don't have structure, and it is really hard to get to our destination if we don't create that structure. So imagine going back, let's go back to the grocery store. Imagine you went out and just started randomly going left, right, and straight. You might make it to the grocery store, but you might not, and you'd probably be pretty stressed trying to get there. Right.
I've been there. I've been, traveling internationally. This is pre like GPS, so I'm just like literally wandering around hoping I run into a place.
Yeah, no,
it is stressful.
and when you're driving in a new place, you're kind of stressed. Like, am I going to miss it? I too have traveled. I grew up on the East Coast, where street signs are incredibly small versus California, where they're wonderfully myopically large and you can see them. So I grew up in Massachusetts, and I remember trying to find, someplace I was going, and the street signs are really small, and you can only see them when you're literally right on top of them. Never mind when it's winter and it's dark and possibly snowing. So yeah, that stress is there. And I worked in the corporate world for 20 years. I certainly get, like, how do I get to where I need to be? And I will totally admit that I had years where I didn't have that structure. But once I created the structure and said, here are the steps that I think I need to take. Here's the other thing. On any of our epic journeys, we can sort of put a roadmap out, but there are detours that come along.
Yeah.
Some of them are bigger than others. We all just experienced one, which was the pandemic. That completely changed the way we worked and we interacted with the people that we work with. And I think that that's had a huge effect on how, just psychologically on people. I think we're inherently, we like other people. We like to be around other people. There's a lot of that non-verbal psychological stuff that lets you know, I like John. I like to have a conversation. I can throw ideas off of John. Virtually, that's a little harder to build.
Yeah, certainly. And you point out just the human nature component. We are social animals, right? We also really thrive in a structured kind of societal setup, right? And so you go back thousands of years and, evolutionary psychology and such, and you think about, like, how did we evolve and how did we get to where we are? we evolved around tribes, and we evolved around knowing each other and being able to know who to trust, and we had all these mechanisms in place to help us figure out how to do that. And as time has marched on, of course, the world has just become more and more messy and complex, and we interact all day every day with people we have never met before, never know, and there's all these extra cues to try to help us understand, like, who can we trust, who can we work with, etc. All that just adds to the level of complexity, and it makes it harder. It means we have to be even more deliberate in setting up these structures to help us to be successful. You mentioned a few minutes ago about like running a marathon, for example. Now, I'm not a runner. I used to be a biker. I used to bike all the time and do big long bike trips, and I would prepare for these 200-mile bike trips.
Sure.
And you don't go from 0 to 200, right?
No.
Like that. You don't like go from not running to running a marathon overnight. Like, obviously there's all these steps along the way in your training, in your preparations. You have milestones, you have markers, signposts to help you along the way. All of that applies in those settings. Of course, right? Let's apply those kind of same principles to our careers, to our, various goals that we might have in our personal lives, our family lives, etc.
Sure, absolutely. Look, I ride road bikes a lot more than I run these days, so I totally get training for a century or a double century. But just to quickly go back to the marathon thing, I had no idea. Look, this is not the body of a runner. I've been fortunate that when I said I really, one of my bucket lists, I want to run a marathon, but I have no idea how. Look, I couldn't even run a mile without stopping. But I joined Team in Training, which is the fundraising side of Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And they did this fabulous thing, and I rediscovered structure. They handed me a training schedule. And all I had to do, John, is look, and it says, go run 45 minutes or go run, 10 miles. Now, I'm not saying the 10 miles was easy, because it wasn't. However, it took all the stress out, because I just had all the structure that told me what I needed to do on a given day. For a bike, for training for a century or something. All right, I need to go do a 40-mile bike ride, and in between I need to do a couple of 10-mile rides or 15-mile rides or whatever. It's not that difficult, because you go, hey, all I need to do on this Saturday is go do this bike ride or go do this run. Then you're done for the day. Imagine in your career, if you're like, here, I want to advance, so I need to get a little more education. All I need to do is take this course, and I need to do this work in this course today. And when I'm done with that for today, I'm done. I don't have to keep worrying about it. I think, going back to the human the psychology and stuff, I think a lot of people feel lost, and it's not a good feeling, right? But if you know what you need to do, most of us can, honestly, I think everyone can execute if you know what you need to do. But if you don't know what you need to do, like you driving around, trying to pre-GPS, trying to find where you're going, it's stressful.
Yeah. And that stress then, I mean, we have fight or flight responses when we start to have those stress responses, right? And that makes it even harder to take that step forward in the direction that you need to go to get to where you're going to go. And it becomes very, very easy to jettison these priorities and goals that you put a lot of time and energy thinking about, and maybe doing other things to prepare for. If you don't have that structure, or the structure starts to break down and that stress arises,
right,
we have to be very disciplined to get back to the structure. Otherwise, it could be very easy for us to just step away. And so when you think about, New Year's resolutions, for example, and, they say most people, by the end of January, you've kind of forgotten about your goals and you're not really doing them anymore. Well, why? I mean, sometimes you overreach and you're going for goals that just aren't even remotely achievable, and you get frustrated and discouraged. But a lot of times it's just the structure. It's just like the lack of your ability to just do the simple, basic things every day that will get you further along that path. And again, life just is messy. So it gets in the way. Like, things happen that were unforeseeable. So even the best laid plans will get disrupted. And you just have to build that into your planning. You have to know that things aren't going to work out perfectly. And, I'm always thinking about, like here's my schedule for the coming week. Here are all the things that have to happen, all the things that need to get done. Here are, the ways I'm going to try to get these things done. Now I need to also think about how half of my time is probably going to get completely disrupted, and I'm going to have to focus on things I haven't even thought about yet because they haven't happened yet, and so you start to build that into how you're going to approach the messiness of your week, and then you're better prepared to deal with the curveballs as they come at you.
Absolutely. The other thing is, I know as a single entrepreneur, there's 8 bazillion things that I need to do in any given day, and I can't do them all at once. But when I create the structure, and more importantly, when I sit there and say, here's what I need to do, how long do I think it will take me? And I create that whole schedule. More importantly, talking about psychology, right? Do the thing or things that you dislike most and work your way towards the things that you enjoy most, because when you have the most energy, you can go do those tasks and set again, if you set out your time, you're right, stuff comes up during the day that you don't know, but if you at least know, hey, this is going to take me 45 minutes, or I need an hour to do this, or I need a half hour to do the podcast with John, no problem. By the way, really enjoyable. I like this part of my job. But I just found that my experience personally, and just in helping other business people, is we tend to avoid the things that we don't like, that are hard, that are painful. So if we get them out of the way at the beginning of the day, then the rest of the day is not nearly as hard versus, oh man, I really need to do my accounting or something like that. Oh, all right, hold on. And then you get to the end of the day, you feel all stressed because you didn't get it done, but you knew you needed to get it done. Get it out of the way. Go work your way towards the stuff that's really enjoyable, because then work gets a lot more fun.
I was watching a show with my wife the other day, and I don't remember the exact quote, but the person was basically kind of a mess, and they weren't getting stuff done. They weren't, they weren't happy with where they were at in their life. And at some point they said something to the effect of, I don't get anything done because I never actually do anything, like that's a very simple, kind of obvious statement, but what you just said is exactly, hitting the nail on the head. You just got to start. You just got to do something, because especially those things you don't like, or those things you're nervous about, we're really good at coming up with all sorts of excuses to procrastinate, to put things off. And then, we don't always realize the mental bandwidth that things take, and the toll that things take on us, even when we're not doing them. So I have these things that need to get done. I don't like doing them. They're frustrating, or maybe they scare me a little bit. And so I avoid them, and I do other things that I enjoy. Guess what? Just because you're doing other things you enjoy, those things that you don't like that need to get done, they're still weighing on you. And even if you're not like consciously aware of them in the moment, they're still part of your weight and your load, and they take up mental bandwidth, and it reduces your ability to do the other stuff. And so just bite the bullet and move forward and get it out of the way. Once you start to do that, all of a sudden you realize, I mean, in my experience, I certainly have those things just like anyone else. In my experience, if I can just like do it, step forward into that darkness of whatever it is that I need to do that I don't want to do, usually it's not nearly as bad as I expected. Usually I can get it done, relatively quickly. It's usually not, doesn't take as long, isn't as messy, isn't as complicated as I thought it might be. It's not as horrible as I thought it might be. And then guess what? Like you said, now I've just focused on it kind of when my brain is at its peak, because I'm not tired from the day. And now I just get it done. And now I'm ready to move on to the other stuff and reinvigorate myself, re-energize myself from the things that I really enjoy. Sometimes people ask me, and this isn't a humble brag or anything, but I tend to be a productive person. And people ask me, how do you do so many things? I'm like, I don't procrastinate. I tackle the things head on that need to be done, and I just move forward. And that sounds trite, perhaps. I don't know. It's worked for me. Like I'm just able to move forward.
Look, I mean, just like my book, Epic begins with one step forward, right? That's exactly it. You take that first step, you find out that this thing that in your mind was big, hard, scary, daunting, whatever, that first step is not nearly as hard as you think. Going back to the marathon analogy, there's a famous quote that says, every marathon begins with one step forward. And that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I've been on both, having run 4 full marathons and 10 halves and a 50K ultra. I've taken those steps, but I've also done other things. I went back to graduate school to get my master's at 45. I had to get 3,000 hours of internship before I could take the licensing exam. I was on a really long journey to become licensed. Obviously, there were a lot of steps there. Some were easier, some were harder, but I understood where I wanted to get to. And in the business world, especially in the corporate world, it can be hard to say, how do I navigate this? Well, there are a couple things. First of all, something that you said about the weight of not doing something. There's Gestalt was a psychologist, and he had this closure theory, and he showed people these 10 pictures of circles. And he said, how many are full circles? Well, it turned out that there's only, out of the 10, there's only 2 that are full circles or something like that. And there are a lot that are just barely, like, and people in our mind, we want to close that circle, right? And that weight of having the open, I have to do this task, that circle is open. But once you close the circle, you don't worry about it anymore, because it's kind of like hitting traffic. You're like, oh my God, I'm gonna be late, I'm in traffic. But once you get past that construction, that accident, whatever, are you still thinking about what held you up? Probably not. It's in your rearview mirror. And I think that's so true in our professional careers, that if we think about what we need to do, be it just your job, or be it, that you want to advance yourself. Also, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
I think all too often, I have spent hours spinning my wheels trying to solve something. And then it dawns on my thick skull that I need to ask. Let me ask my community for help. Someone goes, oh yeah, I did that. And I get the answer in like 5 minutes. And I think,
yep,
I just spent 2 hours trying to solve this, and I could have solved it by asking for help.
Absolutely. Very good. And so you've pointed out some of the really important components here to this EPIC mindset. Now, I'm assuming, maybe this isn't the case, but I'm assuming EPIC stands for something. Is it an acronym?
Yeah. Every pilgrimage includes commitment.
Mm.
And I think, depending on, and I chose pilgrimage for a reason. If you think of, if I'll use myself, I certainly was on a pilgrimage to get licensed, and it was a long thing, and there was a lot of commitment there. For you, John, when you were training to do these 200-mile bike rides, right? That's a pilgrimage, right? And I know that might have some religious connotations, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about that journey that has inherent unknown, some stress, some struggle. But if you
long,
commit to
arduous,
long, arduous, whatever, you can make it. I've done amazing things. I'm the author of 3 books. 2 of them are Amazon bestsellers and won awards. I hate writing. Okay, I mean, I'm really transparent. If you told me in college I was going to be the author of 3 books, John, I would have told you that you were, on drugs or drinking or delusional or something. I'm like, there's no way. But I had always thought about writing a book, but I had no idea. I had all kinds of feedback in school. I wasn't a good writer. I'm a talker, not a typer. So I utilized that to be able to at least get some words down on paper. I dictated my books. My EPIC book I did with a friend of mine, and we just did interviews, and then I took that, and because it was so much easier to talk to someone, and took those ideas and created the book. So, like, I think inherently we all know what we're good at or how we'd like to do something. Well, why not try and do that as much as possible? Because you'll probably be a lot more successful and a lot happier getting it done. I wrote a book by talking. Oh my gosh. But I did it 3 times. It's amazing.
Yeah. And whatever that thing is for us, right? Career aspirations and goals, family, community aspirations, goals, personal, physical fitness, whatever, like whatever the thing is for us. I think it's just really important to recognize that we have all this stuff going on in our heads that often is telling us you can't do that, you're no good, you know, all these limiting beliefs. And it can be super scary to address those limiting beliefs and to, you know, try to tackle them head on. But once you start to take that first step forward, you start to take that step into the darkness, you start to realize, oh, this really isn't as bad as I thought or as hard as I thought. And there are so many other people that have also done the same thing. You can look to them for examples. You can reach out for help, mentorship, coaching. People, in my experience, most people are pretty happy to share, you know, their experiences and wisdom with you and help you learn some of the tricky things, you know, the pitfalls that they faced, so you don't have to face the same things. Like, there's lots of things that we can do if we're just proactive about it. And I really like this pilgrimage kind of imagery that you're conveying through your book title, because anything that's worth doing usually is hard. It's usually long, arduous. There's lots of setbacks. Anything that you're going to be super happy and satisfied with in your life is probably going to be really hard. And how sad if we forego the opportunity to develop that kind of self-efficacy and confidence and the ability to, you know, not only feel good about ourselves but impact the world in a positive way. How sad is that if we forego that simply because we're nervous, scared, worried, all the things that are completely valid emotions. We all feel them, but we don't have to get stuck in them, right? We don't have to ruminate in them.
Absolutely not. And look, here's I want to share 2 words that I think are essential in this pilgrimage. Not yet. Not yet is so, for me, so powerful. It has so much optimism. So, for example, as I was going through my graduate career, are you licensed? Not yet. If I just said no, then it makes it sound like it's never going to happen. It was a long not yet, because there were steps I had to take in order to get there. Not yet said I'm working on it, but it's not happening instantly. In our professional careers, if you're going for some kind of a certification or something, it may take you time to get that certification. It may take you time in a company to get the promotion that you're looking for. Just because you haven't gotten it doesn't mean you're never going to get it. Just means not yet. Have they come out with a promotion list? Not yet. Not no, because then it makes it sound like it will never happen. I think all of us need to have not yet be our passenger on our epic journey. Because I think if you just say not yet, it leaves it open. And look, I have so many not yets in my life. Some of them may never occur. That doesn't matter. I still keep open that optimism that it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, well said, Zander. This has just been a really fun conversation. I note the time. I need to let you go here in just a minute. But before we wrap things up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, where they can find your book, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Absolutely. Okay, so you can get a hold of me at zandersprague.com. I'll just spell it out. That's ZanderSprague.com. If you Google Zander Sprague, you'll find me. If you go to Amazon, put in Zander Sprague, you'll find my books. I do corporate workshops for leadership, for teams, I do coaching, and I'm always happy for people to reach out. And if you just want to talk and you have a question, please reach out and get me, get a hold of me. Now, look, the last thing I want to say and leave you with is that we can make epic choices to have the epic life that we dream of. All you need to do is take one step forward on your journey.
Well said, Zander. It's been a pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Zander can do for you. Check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.